Hi everyone. I'm really extremely happy to be here with so many young people and my friends who have come to hear me speak. I hope whatever I have to say will make some difference in your concepts and your thinking. And I love you all. So I'd like to start my story. I'll show you. I have called this interconnected futures because no matter how much we think that we alone can make it on our own, we cannot do anything alone without, support from each other. And not only support from people from our own socioeconomic level, but support from those who are not of our socioeconomic level. They are of a so-called lower strata of the social scene. So that I'll just, so this is our family in 2006. My husband was, retiring from the Air Force. We were looking forward to a very nice retired life without so much traveling and moving house all the time. So here are my three daughters, and my husband and I were very happy with our three daughters, very proud of them. One of them was in America, and we had a family trip there. And this picture is from that time when we were all visiting her, so it was a trip of a lifetime. Comes 2012, and my life turns into a true horror story. My husband is diagnosed with GBM4 cancer, brain tumor, and it is one of the worst types of cancers. And my two married daughters were able to come back to Pakistan and be with him at the time of his death. So that was a major trauma for all of us. Then my two daughters, they were here at that time, and then they had to go back. And I and my 19-year-old daughter, Valia, we were left to fend for ourselves. Our house was under construction. I had no money. The banks had already been closed by the siblings of my husband. And we faced things which were unimaginable. But we stuck to our, mission or whatever. Since we've not done anything wrong, we should be able to live the life that we want to live. And my husband had built a house for us, so we moved in. And we started our life in a house which wasn't even fully constructed. There was no gas. There was electricity, but it was freezing cold in Islamabad's winter. And we stayed there. Laborers were also living there. Normally, when one looks at a laborer with all his tools and all, you are slightly scared of the laborer, that he can use any of these things against us or whatever. But they were a source of comfort. They were a source of comfort for me. So, and there, my architect was very helpful, Mubina Nasir. She said, even if I have to put money from my own pocket, I will do that, but I will get your house done. The laborers were working, even though they knew I had no money. I was really grateful to them. Whereas my husband's siblings were after our assets. They are the rich people, they are the educated people. And here were the illiterate people who were helping me, and of course, my dear friends. So that is when I really started feeling for the people who are laborers and people or daily wage earners. So basically, that's when my charity work began. Because my staff knew that I had no money, when the time would come for me to pay them, they would say, no, Baji, we don't need any money. And I would say, how is it possible you don't need money? They would say, no, it's okay. I mean, coming from a person who is living at, rock bottom, low section of the society, he is telling me he needs no money. Of course, I would pay them. But at that time, when you are so low and you are going through such bad financial conditions, if someone is kind enough to you, and that too your cook and your maid, this is a great gesture coming from them. Similarly, I had also started, 4.5 years I spent trying to legally get everything that belonged to us. But that was not possible. We have seen that our courts of law are really, really unjust. Anyhow, we continued our journey, and my charity work started becoming from one to sporadic cases. Here I see that I started, a friend of mine came to me and she said, there is this person who needs to be married, and the mother has got paralyzed, and they don't have a father. So that was a very touching situation. So I agreed to get clothes. I just put up a little sentence in my Facebook page that if anybody gives clothes. And they said, even if they are pre-loved, even if they are worn by somebody, then. So I said, okay, and I'll get them dinner sets and all. And I went. It was Ramzan. This was going to be Ramzan. So at 11 o'clock at night, I would go and get the kitchen stuff there, and I would give it. But it was so, and people donated from America and different places, and they were so sweet and they were so trusting that we then had enough money for 2 more marriages. And this is how the whole thing is done, and now we are going to complete our 300 number figure. This package which we have is a very small one. Some people say it is Jahez. I don't say it is Jahez. It's a little gift that a parent gives to their child. And thanks to this, the girls are being able to get married. So we give about 8 to 10 clothes and, the dinner set and the kitchen set. And if somebody has donated us something else, we give that too. So that's how it was. So this carried on, and then comes COVID-19, food. So then I started my food drives, and it happened just accidentally, like on 23rd March when there was the proper lockdown in Pakistan. And I just went out for a drive, and I said, what kind of a author would I be if I don't know what's going on around? So I went out and I saw these people sitting in the rain, huddled up in the cold. And I was saying, why are they sitting here? Because all the construction has closed, all the offices, organizations have closed. So what are they hoping for? So I turned back again, and I went to a little restaurant near our house. I took out whatever money was in my purse, and they made 20 packages for food. I told him not to put them together, make separate ones. So the the owner was a bit surprised. So I said, I want to give separately to the people. He said, okay, if you are giving to them, let 5 of them be from my side. So he added 5 more packets, and that was our first food drive, which was on 23rd March. Believe me, why I love you all is the fact that day, the next day, my daughter heard from America, then Mom and I, my mother and I did it. And the third day, my daughter said from America, do the third one from my side. Believe me, after that day, till today, 4 years later, it's hard to find a little space in between so that I too can donate, because all of you all have been standing with me and giving food to these people. So here you see Ghulam Hassan. He's not very much educated. He can barely sign his name, but he is the one who does my catering for me. In the beginning, I used to do the distribution myself, and my children were freaking out with me because they said the COVID is there. They were trying to remind me of my age, which I always forget, and I choose to forget. So they said, you are threatened, you can get it. I said, if I get it, people get it at home also. What's the problem? So we would put on masks, we would wear gloves, and I would do the same, and with my other staff also, and we would distribute the things ourselves. I would hand them myself. So when the caterer came one day and he was, shifting the food packets to my car, so he said, no, you're going to do it yourself. Baji, leave it to me, I will do it. And so from that day onwards, he has been doing it. So slowly and surely, some medical cases came up in front of our eyes, to our knowledge. There was this girl, her name is Iman, and she was brought to my place, and by a very authentic person. Then he told me that she needs a heart operation. So we pulled up money, and Mummy, I was already getting arms for another person. I said, how can I take up 2 cases? Mummy said, nothing doing, I don't care, you have to get this done also. And we realized that I was not alone. The Heart AFIC in Rawalpindi has a section which is called PANA, and they match your donation. Like if we gave 1.5 lakhs, they pitched 1.5 lakh to match that, and so the girl got 3 lakhs to be able to have her operation, and her life was saved. So here you see the man, his face is turned on this side. This is they don't like to look you in the eye. I was taking the picture, so for respect, he's putting his face, turning his face to the other side. So in those days, I was also doing my MBA evening classes, and later it converted to, so in the evening classes I went, and when it was in Karachi, I had asked my teacher, I was doing it in human resource management, and I said, whatever we are being taught is for educated people. So what about the poor and illiterate people? What has HRM got for us to help them with? He said, no, we are not here for them. And that's when I started thinking that then if a human resource management person isn't going to be with them, then who will take care of these people? They are just, they have no support of any sort from anywhere. So I found that according to the World Bank, the 59.13 is the literacy rate, according to their 2017 agenda. And then this means that 40% are illiterate. Now we were saying in the in the world, the population is so that Pakistan has got the largest number of young people from the age of 15 all the way till age of 35. So you all are, like in the next 5-10 years, I see a beautiful future for Pakistan because you all will be at the helm of affairs. So I think this talk is coming at a very right time, whenever you are, wherever you are. How can we neglect, how can we ignore 40% of the society, 40% of the human resource which is there? So we have to include them. So if you see, we find all of them. We have very comfortable lives in Pakistan. I think even the Queen of England wouldn't be having such a royal time as we have in our own homes. Our food gets cooked, the maid comes to clean the house, the driver is over there, and they're at very nominal rates they are ready to work for us. All organizations have these people working there. The mechanics, they might be illiterate, but they're not unskilled. Their skill is there. And we have seen that Abu Dhabi and Dubai, places where the whole people come from the whole world for it. And who has built all that? It is mostly by the laborers coming from Pakistan who built Abu Dhabi and Dubai. So we have to see, this is the kind of level of skill they have. Even Burj Khalifa has had people building over there, and 6 of them lost their lives over there also. So whatever we are doing, we should never forget them, because they are the kind of people who will always be there for us if we go into distress or have any problem. So I have a podcast and on my YouTube channel, and I was interviewing Anne Ostby. She is wife of a UN. In fact, the UN officer was head of the UN in Islamabad, and she is an author. So she said, "I have lived here in Islamabad 3 times in my life, and I have never seen such helpful people as you see over here in Pakistan." And she knew what she was talking about because she has been traveling and living all over the world. So, if you all know, all of you who have been driving, I have been driving for over 35 years of my life. In the staff room, when I would be talking with the colleagues, we all felt so comfortable because we felt so safe. Because we know that if there is a breakdown, if there is an accident, if there is a tire puncture, these people are going to be there near the roads. They will come running to help us, and they will never leave you in distress. Economic group is the one whom we have to cherish and take care of. I mean, is it only them who should help us? It should be we who help them also. So in one of my podcasts, a beautiful thing came up that Pakistan is the cradle of civilization, which is true. Our history goes back 7,000 years. And where you compare the civilizations of the other worlds like Greek or Egyptian, you only see beautifully constructed things and buildings which were made for the kings or for the gods. Nothing was ever made for the ordinary person. Nothing of substance, so that we have nothing else to look at. It's only those kings' palaces and all. But here, in the Indus Valley civilization, in Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, we see that there is constructed good quality homes for every individual in the city, and they have covered drains, they have paved roads, they have public bath which everybody can use. So there were facilities for all of them. So I feel that let us take that story forward. Let's build a future with a fusion with these people and make a bright future for all of us together. Thank you.